So today we're going to talk about the Haven meta and what is going on this map at the moment and how you might want to approach this map overall. And so going back a couple months to start off with, like we always do, let's talk about what was going on at Copenhagen. And really at Copenhagen, there was only two main ways that this map was really being played. That was this Raze Comp that you can see at the top here with a Raze, an Omen, a Fade, a Chamber, and a Breach. Or you could stick with kind of the more old school style with a Jett Comp, where, you know, instead of a Raze, you're going for the Jett, instead of a Chamber, you're going back to the Killjoy, and maybe you have a Sky instead of a Fade as well. These were kind of the two predominant ways of playing this map. And for this Raze comp, if we start with that comp first, one of the teams that I think really pioneered this comp and kind of showed its true potential to everyone was Leviathan, who I know that Loud have mentioned that they kind of just stole all their ideas on this map, and it worked pretty well for Loud, and Leviathan are a very good team on Haven, and this is kind of what their defensive setup looks like. This is them playing against Team Liquid here, where you're going to have the Raze and the Fade over towards A with the idea of sending maybe a Seize Nade in there, maybe a Fade Horn in there to try and get some early control of this space and to try and maybe, you know, attack this space and stop the attackers coming through. This has become a large part of Haven that, you know, this A lobby area has become a massive battleground. The reason for that is it because of, from the defender's point of view, if you can stop the attackers from getting past this little square here, that means that you only potentially need one person to guard this whole area, and if you only need one person to guard the whole of A, that means you can have four on this other side of the map to guard these two sides, which obviously means you can have fast rotates between them. You know, you should feel pretty comfortable to have four people just defend that if one person can hold down A, if you can get this early control of A lobby. So that's kind of become the meta on Haven, and you can see that with the Raze and the Fade, you know, with that Seize Nade combo and whatnot into this area, that is kind of how they want to try and take control of that. Now, the idea behind Chamber on this map, and Chamber has been seeing a lot of success on this map, and I think the main reason why Chamber really fares well on this map is because he can move around potentially with that operator to a lot of different spots, right? You can have him here on C, potentially on top of the box here as well. You can have him on top of the B side, right, and up down here, or you can have him on the two positions of A as well. So kind of 4 out of the 5 lanes, you know, a Chamber with an op is going to be a big threat, which means that your opponent will never really know and always be guessing where they might be, which, you know, leads to a lot of kills. So that is what normally goes on there. Your Omen or Controller is normally playing towards C. That's kind of a general thing that teams like to do. And your Breach normally is floating in between this area here to potentially stun down towards A main as well. Sometimes they might actually come and play on the A site as well. And so you'll see that in this round, we are going to get that early Seize Nade combo that they just throw in down there. And that's kind of the general idea behind this. And then sometimes also Leviathan, what they might do is they might also push up here and get into like these areas with their Fade and Raze as well. That's something that you will see from a lot of teams these days also. But you see you've got like the Prowlers to send out short. You've got Boombot just got sent out down long as well, right? This is kind of what is going on here, and the idea behind these two agents is that you also have, you know, enough delay for any fast rushes to allow a rotate to come in. You see that Prowler comes out there as well, and then by the time that Dima here is going to be, you know, coming up onto the site, you can see that the rotates are kind of already coming in, right? Everyone's kind of here, and so when he actually manages to get that first kill, Adverso is there to trade it straight away, and the hold is kind of, you know, in progress. And then you look, the rotates are already here, and Team Liquid can't come to this A site. And when it comes to the attacking side with this comp, again, there will be a bit of an A lean. Generally, what you're going to see, and this is Leviathan's default, that again, teams haven't exactly copied, but kind of taken some of the ideas from perhaps with this comp, is you're going to see this Omen smoke in here. And this has become, I think, one of the key reasons why you do see Omen over Astra a bit more, and we'll talk about that a bit later. But I think this is one of the key reasons is this smoke here, because Omen obviously has kind of quicker recharging smokes than Astra overall. And the thing is, you do want to block off this line of sight for longer than I think just like recalling an Astra star. I think you do potentially want a full permanent smoke there. And so that is why the Omen, this smoke, just to block off this line of sight completely, has been pretty useful overall for a lot of teams. And so what's going to happen here is Leviathan go into kind of their default look with the Fade, the Breach, and the Raze over towards A, just kind of holding down that area. The Chamber is watching Garage, the Omen is watching here, and they've got their Chamber Trap watching for exactly what Scream does just here in pushing up. And so now you could see that Taco has that good idea that he's there, and you know, this aggressive push from Team Liquid is kind of stopped, as you can see. Moving on over to the Jett Comp, and we have DRX playing it here, and overall on the attacking side, it's kind of what you would expect for the most part, right? Like, you have, you know, some pretty good utility for these executes. You have Omen Flash, obviously the Breach with the stun and the flashes, and mainly the idea here is, of course, that your Jett is just going to dash in with a smoke, survive for a bit, flash maybe behind either one of this box or this box, and then the Jett gets a kill. It's something that's kind of been done on this map for a very, very long time indeed, and it kind of all plays out as you would expect. In this instance, we get a Breach shot, in goes the Jett dash, and you know, it's basically, you know, reliant on that Jett perhaps getting that first kill, and then the rest of the team coming in, flooding in afterwards, kind of, you know, your base exec. And in this instance, we also had Buzz here, sorry, not Buzz, RB here on the lurk on Killjoy as well, who's deep in mid, as you can see just here, and will try and hunt down Artist, although I think actually Artist is going to manage to get this kill. Little 140 headshot, little phantom moment there for RB. And on the defensive side with this Jett comp, well, perhaps it's a bit more stationary than it is for the chamber comp. It's not that things can't move about, but what you'll generally see a lot more of is the breach stun will more come towards a lobby, like pretty much every round, whereas with the Raze comp, you don't necessarily need to do that because your Seize nade might be enough to stop that progress early on. But with this comp, you're probably going to be breach stunning down there. Your Jett, as we can see here, Buzz is down here towards A as well with an op, and that will happen more often as well. Where the op will be more towards this A side in general. Not that it can't move across the map, but just, I would say, more regularly. And another reason is because the Killjoy setup generally tends to be like this as well, where you've got an alarm bot and a nanoswarm here on B. Your turret is watching both garage and down towards C as well here, just in the little connector between those two. And so that's generally what the setup will look like here for a lot of teams who are playing this comp as opposed to a chamber. And going from Copenhagen to champs, we didn't see too much change overall, but we did get an addition of something a bit weird and something a bit out there, and that was these no dive comps coming about. Now, there wasn't a ton of this, but there was enough to kind of see this as potentially a way that the meta might be shifting, where you take out a duelist altogether. You say, we're not playing any duelist, or maybe Phoenix, but you're definitely not playing a dive agent. No Neon, no Raze, no Jett, you know, no one with a movement ability. And you basically replace it with a double Sentinel look instead, where you add in either this Sage or Killjoy, as you can see just here. And we saw a few different teams experiment with this idea to mixed success, and so let's explain what that comp is trying to do. So here we have Optic versus Xset, and you can see the Optic's comp is quite weird, right? There is no movement duelist, there is double Sentinel in here, Killjoy and Chamber, and so, you know, it is quite weird. But let's start with the defensive side, because that's perhaps a bit more easy to explain, right? Because defensively, things kind of look like they do for the other comps, right? You've got, again, the Fade, and instead of a Raze, it's a Phoenix this time, and obviously you can still do the Phoenix Molly here with a Seize if you perhaps wanted to, but again, you've got the Killjoy set up towards garage and some towards C as well. You've got the chamber here on B, and you might add in a chamber trap here as well for B as well, and obviously you just have a ton of potential combos and stall here for the defensive side. Again, your chamber can move around wherever he might wish with the op. You know, you have deep A control in this instance that Optic have managed to get. It kind of looks very, very similar. Again, your Omen is down here towards C as well. Now, obviously, when it comes to the attacking side, you might wonder, how on earth does this comp ever manage to get onto a site? They don't have any movement duelists to, you know, get deeper in onto the site and make use of any flashes or anything like that. But what they tend to do more often than not, or a lot more than other comps maybe, is go towards the B site. And the reason is the B site on Haven generally tends to be a bit more free to get onto. It's generally the easiest site to retake in the entire game as well. So, you know, often defenders will feel, you know, comfortable to, just like Xset have done here, just put a chamber trap on there and just kind of, you know, let them in. Have some eyes on it just to check that, you know, no one's coming super, super deep. But overall, you know, let them in, let them plant. That's absolutely fine. But that's kind of what this comp wants to do, because even though this is a bonus round here for Optic, you know, they are going to come in onto this B site. But obviously, once you've planted the spike as the attackers, you essentially become the defenders, right? You're now defending the spike plant. And obviously, this comp has great defensive utility, as you'll see he just here. You know, you're able to get 2 nanoswarms down on the spike just there. And just take a look at this setup all of a sudden, right? All of a sudden, there is no flank from A available because of this chamber trap, right? There is no flank down C available because of this. If you come out of garage, they'll know as well. You've got nanoswarms on the spike. And so all of a sudden, you know, a lot of the potential options that Xset have to them to attack, you know, this retake on this B site, Optic will know. They have very, very, very good information at this point, right? And so this is kind of something that Optic were, you know, abusing somewhat with this site on B is just, you know, we can get the spike down pretty easily, and then we have just a ton of utility to let us know where people are coming from. And in this instance, you know, XZ aren't really coming from those flanks, so they know they must be coming from these directions. Yay does some yay things and manages to get a kill, and even though this is their bonus round, you know, they're gonna manage to win this round in the end, and you know, it looks pretty comfortable for them overall. You know, the nanoswarms start going off as well, and it looks very, very comfortable for Optic just there. And that is how these comps were basically playing. They were kind of relying a bit more on this B site, and then, you know, once you've kind of established that, hey, we like to go B a lot, then you start adding in some fakes where, you know, you pivot quickly from B and you come back towards C through Garage instead. You know, that's a lot of what Optic were doing with this comp. And so going forward then, if we take a look at the agent pick rates overall, you can see that when we look at the duelists, not too much has changed with, you know, mostly towards Raze, a bit of Jett, and there was a tiny bit of Neon, some teams trying the Neon as well. When it comes to the controllers, again, not too much change overall. Most teams are favoring that Omen. As I said, I think one of the big reasons is some of those smokes down A, those rechargeable smokes, also the flash down C long, you know, very powerful as well on that defensive side. And so you can see still the majority going for Omen, which you did see a big dip for Sky and more Fade. This is kind of an interesting thing because on a lot of other maps, Fade's pick rate actually decreased from Copenhagen towards Champs, so people kind of figured out what map she was and wasn't good on. But Haven is the big one where she had a big increase overall, with teams realizing that Fade perhaps is even more powerful than they first realized on Haven, and so that is the way they're going. You see that Breach has actually come down, and I think part of that is to do with those double Sentinel comps that feel like they don't really need Breach too much because, you know, they have enough control on the defensive side, and, you know, they're just abusing that B site potentially on the attack side. Chamber much the same, and also Sage also kind of coming in with a low pick rate overall. And when it comes to the comps, you can see that the Raze comps are still very much on top, with 6 different teams using those comps at Champs as well. You see that the Jett comps overall did decline in play rate, and we saw a bit of a shift away from them, and that's partly due to the fact that, you know, there were these no dive comps, double Sentinel comps coming about from the likes of Optia, Furia, and Crew as well. 3 different teams trying out. So maybe we will see, you know, a bit of a pattern towards that kind of comp, maybe a bit more in the future as well, as teams have proven that it is a viable alternative.